What would it feel like to know that no matter what happens in life, you'll have enough money to be okay? The stress of finances are gone. We'll cover that in the 10 best ideas for this week's book review, Unshakeable. What's up, guys? Clark from refusingtosettle.com. Welcome back to the book series, taking the best books in business, self-improvement, self-development, anything that makes your life better, condensing them down into about 20 minutes. This week, Unshakeable by the man, the myth, the legend, Tony Robbins. A lot of you saw that vlog. I went to a seminar just the other week with my mom. Just a quick disclaimer. Although I'm wearing a shirt, I'm not a financial expert, so check with your provider before making any big moves. That being said, let's get into these 10 best ideas from Unshakeable. Big idea number 1, your wealth tax. In the book, there's a story that's really moving. It's of a UPS worker. He never made over $14,000 to his name. A guy comes to him and says, "I'm gonna make you rich." He said, "What are you talking about? I work at UPS. I don't make over 14 grand. The guy said, "That doesn't matter. What I'm gonna do from this day forward is I'm gonna put a wealth tax on you. It's 20%. The UPS worker wasn't too happy, but he adjusted. So he committed and saved 20% of every paycheck year after year. He put every bonus into his wealth tax year after year. Now this was hard, required sacrifice because he didn't make much. But by age 90, he retired. Do you know how much he retired with? Over $70 million. That is the true story of Paul Theodore Jones, illustrating that to really get rich, to be financially unshakable, well off, we need two things: discipline and time. A lot of people say, "I can't invest because I don't have money." But what they don't realize is they don't have money because they're not investing. What you and I need to do right now, we need to commit to putting a wealth tax on us, to make ourselves better in the future by setting systems in place today. Big idea number 2, start today. Let's compare two people right now. First is a 19-year-old kid. He says, "This getting rich thing sounds great." So he takes $300 a month and saves it in an account, but he quits at the age of 27. So he's got $28,000 in the account, and it grows at about 8 to 10% annually, which is pretty standard. Now the second person is 29. He says, "This getting rich thing sounds great, I'm gonna start now." Does the same thing, $300 a month until the age of 65. So he's got $140,000 compared to the other guy's $28,000. But that's not exactly true, because here's what happens. Due to the power of compounding, the 19-year-old started so early, those extra 10 years, although it wasn't a lot, paid off more, because by the end, he had close to $2 million. The 19-year-old started with $28,000, he ended up with $2 million. The 29-year-old still had $300,000 less than the 19-year-old, because the 19-year-old started sooner, he started young, and he didn't touch it. Essentially, the 19-year-old compared to the 29-year-old, he got a $300 raise every single month to play with. He didn't have to do anything with it. He got $300 extra that he didn't have to invest from the ages of 29 to 65, and he still came out with more money. How would you like an extra $300 a month and still be ahead by the age of 65? What those two scenarios do is illustrate the power of starting young. Next big idea. Let's touch on the power of compounding. This is the most important tool that's gonna make you rich. Einstein calls this the 8th wonder of the world. It's why the rich 1% get richer and richer. You've heard that term, right? How is that happening? Well, because they have so much money invested that it makes them money on the money they invest. Pretty much the whole book summed up is about compounding. It's saying get in the market. That the sooner you start, the sooner you can get ahead, the sooner you can use the power of compounding to let your money make you money. Here's a really great video clip from Invest Tools on the power of compounding. If you like it, go check out that video. It's really great.
Compound interest is reinvesting earned interest back into the principal of an investment, resulting in exponential growth over time. Suppose there are two investors who have a starting balance of $10,000 each. They both decide to buy the exact same investment on the same date, and they both plan to hold their investments for 30 years. But one investor plans to withdraw the interest at the end of each year, while the other plans to reinvest the interest and let it compound. Let's fast forward 30 years to see the difference in potential returns. In this example, let's suppose that the investment earned 5% per year. The investor withdrawing interest every year would have earned $500 per year. Over 30 years, the earnings would have totaled $15,000. That's not too shabby, but let's see how much of a difference reinvesting the interest could have made. The investor who reinvested the interest would have possibly earned $33,219. This is more than double the return of the other investor. This is the power of compound interest.
Big idea number 4, fear and Chicken Little. Basically, people screaming that the sky is falling, we're all gonna die. Winter is coming is another one. People so afraid when they're in the market that there's a crash coming. In the book, it talks about how a lot of people have their money in the stock market. And if you had your money in the stock market back in 2008, one of the worst financial crashes that happened, how much money did you lose? You lost a lot if you pulled it out, if you thought the sky was falling and you pulled out. If you let the fear overcome, you let the naysayers and people saying we're never going to recover, we're too far down to recover ever, then you lost money. But if you stayed in there, nothing happened. Tony tells a story in here about his friend who manages a hedge fund, the places where billionaires invest their money. So they have so much money and they're in charge of investing other people's money. Well, the guy who ran the hedge fund during 2008, one of the worst financial crashes, when everything was crumbling around, people were screaming the sky is falling, he sent out an email to his clients with one sentence. He said, stay the course. He says that that's his mantra when it comes to managing other people's money. Stay the course. That if you freak out every single time there's a dip, or every single time there's a fill in the blank, something bad happens, or you foresee something happening, then you're gonna lose. That 2008 crash, Tony was talking in the book, that up to 40% of people said they would never invest again. They thought it was too risky. And what was fascinating is that 60% of those were millennials. We have a lot of young people watching this video right now. So if you think the stock market's too risky, remember that you shouldn't listen to the naysayers who are saying that the sky is falling, and that the only two things that are really gonna stop you from making money in that stock market is if America goes away completely overnight, or if you listen to the naysayers and pull out altogether. Next point, you can't time the market. Warren Buffett says the point of market forecasters, the people who try and predict what the analytics are doing, okay, and then in 2 months it's going to be up, so we're going to sell it short or sell it long or whatever. He says the point of those people is to make fortune tellers look good because they're so bad. You can't time the market. Even the best can't do it. There's no way to time the market. It's impossible. So the one thing you can control is being in the market. And in fact, everyone's sitting around saying there's a crash coming, so we're going to be out of the market completely. I'm going to have all my money in cash and I'll outsmart them. And then when it crashes, I'm going to be in the market and buy stock for cheaper. But there's no telling when that's going to actually happen. So meanwhile, your cash isn't doing anything. It's actually losing money every single year, right? With inflation. Inflation goes up, your cash value goes down. A Coke 25 years ago was like $1. Now you go to a vending machine, it's $1.25. So if you held onto that $1, you now have to pay way more for that Coke than you would have. So one of the riskiest things you can do is be out of the market. There was a study with the S&P 500, I believe it was over 20 years. It said what happens if you're out of the market. If you were out the 10 best trading days of the market, you missed any one of those 10 days, your returns were down to 4.5%. Now the average returns on a stock market's around 8%. What's really fascinating is if you were out 20 days, you now were down to 2%. If you're out 30 days, you had all your money in cash for 30 days, you lost money. So when people try and time the market to make it perfect, they try and get in the stocks and outsmart the system, it can't be done. Next point, these are Buffett bullets. Warren Buffett's definitely one of the greatest investors of all time. These are some quotes from the book and from him. He said, I only have 2 rules when it comes to investing. Rule number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, don't forget rule number 1. He says, be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. Successful investing takes time, discipline, and patience. No matter how great the talent or effort, some things will just take time. You can't produce a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. If you aren't willing to own a stock for 10 years, don't even think about owning it for 10 minutes. Next big idea, index funds. This is the recommended investment in this book. Index funds are in the stock market. S&P 500 is an example of one where it's basically you get to own a little of a lot. So you get to own a little bit of 500 stocks. And what that does is you diversify in the stock market instead of just owning Facebook. And if you're dependent, all your eggs are in that basket. If Facebook goes away, then you're out completely. So what the S&P 500 does, or any other index you want to look into, so your money can grow at about 8 to 11% or whatever the market does, but that's the average. Next point, diversification of 4 kinds. Diversification is one of those things we hear about, but it's hard to do because the human tendency is to stick at what we know, stick at what we're good at, and just keep doing that. But just like other areas in life, if you only plant one crop, that's monocropping. And then what happens to the soil? It dries up, you need all these pesticides, all that stuff to keep that crop alive. So just like your money, if you don't diversify it, if something good happens, okay, it looks really awesome, but what about when something bad happens? Then it all goes away. And this book says there's 4 classes that you can diversify over. The 4 areas you can diversify in, the first is the asset class, so stocks, bonds, property, etc. Second is within an asset class, index funds, individual stocks, etc. The third are with diversifying the country your money's in. So United States or international, China, etc. And then the fourth, the time you invest in. So when you're young, you're an adult, and when you're old. Next point, are you an owner or a consumer? This point was a wake-up call for me. I do invest in stocks. I love it. My dad taught me really good values growing up, so I've been fortunate enough to learn a lot, but this point really drove it home, and it was a gut punch. It said, are you an owner or a consumer? The Rich Dad Poor Dad talks about, do you have assets or do you have liabilities? A car is a liability. It's not an asset. So are you buying a really nice car for 100 grand, or are you investing that 100 grand and buying a 30 grand car? So this point says, look, if you want to be rich, you need to become an owner, not a consumer. That if you have a $700 iPhone, but you don't own $700 of Apple stock, what's wrong? The takeaway from that is that the typical roadmap of working, earning, and saving your way to wealth does not pay off. It just is too slow. It's missing that key component that we talked about, compounding, that thing that makes everything just explode over the long term. The way you get rich is by compounding, investing, and diversifying, and by becoming an owner, not a consumer. Last point. Okay, some resources and apps I love and recommend, things that have really made an impact on my financial freedom and just how I view money, how I'm going about saving or investing. So a few of them, obviously the first one, this is a good book. Unshakeable, Tony Robbins. I thought it was a lot out of it. Rich Dad Poor Dad's another great book. I'll link up the book summary down below. And then the other one I have sitting here that we didn't have time to talk about today, but it's kind of a behemoth. The first book, Money Master the Game. This thing was awesome. It was 7 simple steps to financial freedom. It's a lot more to chew on. It's like triple the size of the other Unshakeable book, but nevertheless, it's very beneficial. Other things to research, index funds. If you're curious, just Google around, find some articles, read up on them, do your stuff. And then 4 apps that I use that have really been a game changer for me. The first is just the Stocks app from, I have an iPhone, so the Apple iPhone Stocks app. That's a great one. The second is an app called Mint. This takes all your finances. You can link your bank accounts. It gives you this beautiful spreadsheet of how you're doing every month. You can set budgets. It's just a really cool way to visualize your money and your spending habits. And, it's kind of a reality check that we think we save so much or we think we invest so much, and then it shows you that you don't actually, and that's okay. You can get honest and get on the path to doing more. The next one is my favorite app. This is called Capital with a Q. This app is phenomenal. It lets you kind of do the same thing as Mint, set goals, and shows you your budget. But what it does is you can link it to your bank accounts. So every time you use your debit card, you can set rules to a goal. And let's just say you wanted to take a trip. All right, so you want to save $10,000 to go on a world trip. Well, every time you use your debit card, you can say, hey, that purchase was $2. I want you to round up to the nearest $5 every single time. So you're depositing $3 in, and it does it automatically. You don't have to do it. $3 in, $3 in, $3 in, and pretty soon that adds up. You can do a freelance rule like I do. So where I say I want 30% of every single paycheck to be saved, because in April, when I got to pay a lot of taxes, because I don't really have W-9s, then boom, I can just do it immediately from that app. and it saves it. I mean, this was such a game changer, guys. Really, like this app is amazing. The fourth app is Schwab, Charles Schwab. That's who I go through with all my stocks and investment stuff. Again, you can look at their site, you can look over them. That is it. Thank you so much for watching. It's fun doing another book summary for you all. If you liked it and you got something from this, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and the little bell next to it so you never miss a video. Comment down below with your best idea, something you want to add, something you agree with, or something you disagree with. Last thing, I am putting together a course that's going to launch next month, Video Breakthrough Academy. This is basically showing you a very transparent, open look into my business, what you're seeing here, how I did it, how I built it up using content, talking about topics I'm passionate about, and just really spreading a message that serves others. So I'll link up a free book down below that's about how to optimize your YouTube channel. And if you download it, you'll get put on the list to get notified when that course is live. It's a free book, The YouTube Success Formula. So that's at the link down below. That's it. I'll see you next time. Until then, stop settling, start living. See you guys.